Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. My name is Zoe, but most people know me on here and other forms of social media as ZA Reptiles. Now, I had a request to talk more about wildlife rehab on here because I've posted a lot of updates on TikTok, some on Instagram, but TikTok is mainly where I've been posting my rehab updates, and I didn't realize that I've literally not talked about my rehab animals from this year at all on this channel. So today is going to be a day where we kind of go over what I have done with wildlife rehab this year. So some of you may remember that I was actually vlogging the day that I took the rehab test last year and got like a 99%. It's like they wouldn't let you get 100. 99%. Somewhere, something, they found a point to take off. Whatever. So I got my rehab license last year, but I think it was like the end of summer. So the time for rehabbing wasn't really like then and there. It really picked up this spring when it became laying season for all the turtles. But I've also gotten more than just turtles. So we're gonna dive in. I'm going to... Gracie, where'd you go? Hello. So we're going to dive in. I'm going to tell you about all of the animals that I have rehabbed or had some part in this year. But first, and the reason we're doing this today, I actually have an animal that is being dropped off to me today. And this is probably my most exciting one yet. And I've had several very exciting ones this year. And I keep saying, this is my most exciting one. This is my most exciting one. Y'all, this one is my most exciting one. And you'll see why when it gets here. What I will say is that it is a herp, and it is a herp that I have been trying to find like literally since I started working at the nature center. I go herping to look for it. I tell my coworkers, someone find me this animal because I need to see one. And one of my coworkers who's been working at the nature center for like ever said that he has only ever seen one, and it was like years ago. So I've been telling everyone, I'm like, you know, somebody find me this animal. And our part-timers are actually in a competition for the summer where they earn points and everything. They're in different Hogwarts houses, and it's a whole thing. They're very competitive. And I've been telling them, if someone finds me this animal, there will be massive points. Sure enough, one of our part-timers found this animal, but it was in her parents' basement. So I think it's been down there for a little bit. So she's bringing it to me. We're going to give it a little TLC before we release it, because I can't keep it because that would be illegal. You cannot own native wildlife here in New York. But because I have a rehab license, I can keep it for a little bit just to make sure it's healthy, it's good to go before we release it back out to the wild. So I'm very excited for it to get here. When it gets here, I will definitely show you guys. We'll meet him, we'll check him out, see how he's doing. But I am so excited. But once he's established, we get him all set up, we'll talk about all of the animals from this year. And I'll put in some like videos and pictures off to the side. Because again, they were all pretty much for TikTok. So they're going to be like tall videos as opposed to like horizontal, vertical videos as opposed to horizontal videos for YouTube. So I'll just put them like on the side while I talk to you about the animals, and we'll do it that way. But I will see you in a little bit. So the new arrival is here. Before I show you, pause this video, comment what you think it is. I'm gonna give you a minute. Okay, that was only like a couple seconds, but still, if you pause the video, you shouldn't be giving away yet. So now that you've taken your guess, let's see if you're right. There he is. He's a little yellow spotted salamander. I say little, he's actually quite big. But he's a yellow spotted salamander. I have been dying to find a yellow spotted salamander, and now one has been delivered to my doorstep. He's very skinny. No doubt he's been in their basement for probably pretty much all of winter. So we're gonna get him set up in a tub and see what we can do for the little bug. Okay, I don't want to be weird to be like, oh, look at my setting up a salamander tub in my kitchen, but we're doing it. So this is the tub we're using to house him in. It's a, I don't know what size it is, but it's like decent, especially for like a quarantine rehab setup. This bin here has water in it. I've already treated using some Aqua Safe for reptiles and amphibians to make the water safe. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to do a paper towel bottom. Because he doesn't look super healthy, I want to be able to see what's going on. So we're going to do a moist paper towel so that it's still wet in there, but I can see what's going on. He can easily find his food. So I don't know if this is overkill, but I am wetting the paper towel using the treated water as opposed to just typical tap water. And we're actually going to do a second layer so that if he wants to burrow, he can burrow under the paper towel because, you know, options. We like to provide options for behaviors. It's very good enrichment, creates a healthy animal. So if he would like to burrow, he can burrow under a wet paper towel. The option is there. So now I've got this hide and water dish combo that I've literally had since I got Zephyr, our family leopard gecko, first animal I ever had. He came with this. I don't know why I still have it because I really actually hate the hide and water dish combos. But I feel like for just a simple, small setup for like a rehab animal in quarantine, this will do great. It's 2-in-1. It saves me space in there. So we're going to go ahead and plop that right in there because then it gives him somewhere to hide, somewhere to climb, and access to a little pool of water. So we're going to take our treated water and pour it in there. So now he has a hide. He can climb under the paper towels, which are moist, to keep him moist. And he's got a water dish. Let's put him in. Okay, so I also added a fake plant because I hated how like open and empty this side was. So now there's a fake plant for extra coverage, so if he wants to get out and explore, there's that for enrichment. We love enrichment. Okay, time to add the salamander. Okay, so I've got my powder-free gloves here. I'm a big fan of wearing gloves when handling amphibians. And we're gonna get him out and we're gonna do his initial intake inspection. Normally I would also weigh the animals, but my animal scale is upstairs. I don't have a separate scale here for using with like rehabs. And he's been through a lot, so I just want to get him into the bin. We can always weigh him a little bit later. Oh yeah, you can tell he's been through a bit. When I pick him right up, he's very still. Those legs are very, oh, they're moving. Those legs are very thin. Skin and bones, really. His hip bones are sticking out. His ribs are sticking out. Skinny little dude, but he's beautiful. He's so freaking cute. I can't handle it. I can't handle the cuteness. Okay, now we've got the window working for us. You can see him better. So here he is. Our little salamander friend. He's very skinny. His hips are sticking out. You can see his spine. But oh my god, is he cute. Okay, little buddy. This is your new home for a little bit. You, sir, are the cutest thing I think I've ever seen in my entire life. Okay, now that our little salamander friend has been all set up, we can talk about the rest of the rehabs. But first I want to share with you his name. So my boss and her friend started this thing, and you know, now I'm a part of it too, where we let the finders name the animals for good luck. So I had texted the part-timer that found the salamander and asked what she wanted to name it. And she chose 𝘿𝙪 because it means cellar in Dutch. Now I'm a big fan of pulling from other languages to name things. I used to do it with my Webkins all the time because like naming a white dog Snowflake was too basic, but you work some Spanish in there and all of a sudden you've got a unique name. So yeah, I'm a big fan of using like other languages because I find other languages like so fascinating. I wish that I was like bilingual and spoke more than English. I did take Spanish for many years. I've got a good base because I took it in kindergarten and first grade, and gosh darn it, I wish we had continued because maybe I would actually know Spanish a little bit better. But in New York, they don't start a language until junior high, which is basically useless. So yes, the salamander's name is 𝘽𝙪𝙨, which is Dutch for cellar because they found him in their cellar. Okay, so to start off the year, we started with a bang. We didn't start easy. I started with a freaking squirrel. Now, I got my license so that I could do turtles and like herps, and so I could legally transport animals because we were getting a lot of birds and whatnot that we would drive an hour and a half to a facility that could take them. So I'd be driving an hour and a half with a bird in my car. So mainly I got my license for herps and for transporting animals. And yeah, not for mammals, not for squirrels, though he was very cute. It was a little baby red squirrel. I don't think we ever gave him a name actually, but if you follow me on TikTok and Instagram, you did see him because I had him for about 2 days before we transferred him to a squirrel rehabber who specializes in squirrels. He was an angry little dude, very angry. I did get to hand feed. I didn't pull him out and like handle him to hand feed. I did it through the bars because he was a little psychopath, and I did not want to open the door because you look at him just right and he attacked the cage and screamed at you. So, but he was so cute. So he got transferred to a squirrel rehabber who lives about an hour and a half away, and we did recently get an update from her that he was released, or she, I forget, it was a little boy or a little girl. I think it ended up being a little girl. But anyway, it was released with 2 other squirrels that she had been rehabbing. They formed a little family and were all released together, and we got pictures, and it was just super cute, super awesome. I love that she sent a letter. I thought that was a fantastic touch for rehabbing because, you know, people worry about their little animals, and I love that she sent a letter saying, you know, this is how it went, this was what was wrong, all better now, been released with its new little squirrel family. Here's some pictures. I thought that was amazing. And I'm trying to remember the order because there was a few different ones. So I think after that, I left work early. This was the first turtle we got. We got a lot of turtles this year. I had left work early to go over to Canada to skate with some of my students. And doesn't a turtle get brought in? And so one of my coworkers who was still there texted me, was like, hey, turtle just came in, don't know if you want to like come back over. And I was like, I'm actually not even in the country right now. So yeah. So my boss and I ended up meeting up later that night back at work to try to piece this turtle together. Now this was a painted turtle, a lot of painted turtles. Painted turtle is in very rough shape. I forget what I named him, but I did name him after the rink that I was at just because it was just a crazy situation. I was in a whole other country, and yeah. So there was that turtle. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. I think he either passed away overnight or by the next morning, but he didn't make it. He was in rough shape. Oh, his name was Benny. His name was Benny. So then I might get these out of order, so we're just going with the flow. We did the first animal we had of the year was actually a painted turtle. I know I really didn't have to do much for him. He only really had like a little nick, like a little tiny crack in the back of his shell or something. So I try to remember if I helped patch him up. I think I might have helped wire him up. I'm not sure, but we only had him 2 weeks, not even, and he was released. So he's not really like on my mind because I really didn't do much with him. Crazy time. This is when most of the excitement happened. So I am getting ready for work one morning and I see a post from a skating mom from another town over on Facebook, and she says, you know, does anyone know anyone that can help a snapping turtle? And someone had mentioned calling us, and she said she tried. We weren't open yet, so no one answered. So I messaged her and was like, hey, like, my boss and I are the ones that are licensed at such and such place that you tried to call. If you want to tell me where the turtle is, I will text my boss, because we had a field trip group coming in, so I couldn't leave. I had to be there for the field trip group, but I could send my boss over to find it. So she told me where it was. You know, she was on her way to work, so she couldn't like stop and grab it or anything, but she helped it get out of the road. She said it was bleeding from its face, but she was able to move it out of the road. but she didn't know the severity of its injuries. So she sent me a picture of where it was, and I sent it to my boss, told her where it was. My boss went and found it and brought her in. So this was a head trauma case. A lot of snapping turtle cases are head traumas. So the reason for this is most turtles, when they are in the road and something big is coming at them, they're going to try to run away, or they're going to tuck in their shell. And that's how they end up with shell damage. Snapping turtles are a little bit of like a doofus kind of species, and they see something coming at them and they are like, oh, what's going on? Boom. So we got quite a few head traumas for snappers this year, and quite a few shell injuries for painteds this year. So unfortunately, most of the snapping turtles that came in didn't make it. This one though, this one did. So this one was named 𝘼𝙪𝙨. Again, we let the finder name her, and she chose 𝘼𝙪𝙨 because it means, I think it was like strength and bravery or something like that. Let me look again. Well, she named her 𝘼𝙪𝙨 and it meant something like bravery, strength, something like that. So very fitting because, you know, we wanted her to pull through. She had a little bit crack in her jaw. It was like up top going back towards her eye. So she had one eye that was swollen, and when we first got her, she kept closing it a lot, and then a little crack. So she was still very active. She could get up and move around and walk. And because it wasn't anything major, she could still open and close her mouth. She still snapped at us. We had high hopes for her. There's turtles that have seen a lot worse and pulled through and been released. So we had a lot of high hopes for her. So we kept her for a while. Of course, this was in the span of like the 2 days that a lot of turtles came out to lay their eggs. So with it being so early in the morning, we figured she was probably on her way to lay eggs. So that created another problem for us, was not only did she have this face trauma, but she possibly had eggs. So let me tell you, there's nothing quite like trying to put cream on a snapping turtle's wound on their face and giving them eye drops. Your hands are very close to their face. It was an experience for sure. I am quite skilled with a plunger now, I will say. Also, I learned how to hold a snapper's head down with your fingers without losing your fingers, so that was pretty cool. I feel kind of like a, you know, bad bee, but not something I want to do every day. Because normally you could get them to like bite onto something and problem solved, but with her injury, we didn't want her biting on and holding on to something. So anyway, this all cleared up pretty well, pretty fast. We were able to start putting her into water, letting her soak, and then we'd start working in foods because obviously like we wanted her to eat. So we worked in foods. Took a little bit of convincing. It wasn't until I brought in minnows and kind of tongue fed her, convinced her to eat one, that suddenly kind of like jump started everything and she was eating. She really liked shrimp, really liked minnows, wasn't a fan of worms, but she really liked her seafood. So before I get into the ending with her, we're gonna keep going with the timeline. So I get the snapping turtle, right? Next day, I swear to God, all hell broke loose. So I get a call about a map turtle. Now this was our first really, really exciting one. Of course you don't want an animal to be injured, but it wasn't a painted turtle or a snapping turtle. It was something different, something you don't see very often. So it was a map turtle, and it was a female map turtle. Those suckers are huge. So we have a male map turtle at our nature center. This was a female map turtle. She's like triple his size, and we all agree she's the biggest female we've ever seen. So I get a call about this female map turtle. They bring her in, right? So these guys bring her in. She is like crushed. Like she's got breaks towards like the front top of her shell. Her bridge is broken and like shoved up inside of her plastron, so the top of her shell. Like it was a hot mess. She was bleeding everywhere. So I took her in the back while the guys were filling out paperwork, took her in the back, tried to, you know, get the bleeding to stop, gauze her up, clean her off, and then just let her sit. And her name, we named her. I forgot to have the guys name her. So we named her, and actually the part-timer that found the salamander is the one that came up with her name. So because when you release an animal, you want to release them close to where they were found, because that's kind of their home range, right? I asked those guys to kind of explain to me where it was they found her, because I'm not really familiar with the area in which they found her. They explained to me a little bit more, and the main thing they told me was that there was a dispensary on the right. So her name is MJ. So my boss was out of town. She had to leave town for an appointment, I think, or something. And this is happening, right? So my boss is like, I'll come in before closing. We can patch her up, see what we can do for her. I was like, great. So I just left her. I had wrapped gauze around her to try to see if we could get the bleeding to kind of stop. I cleaned her off. Not even like 30 minutes after getting this map turtle, we get a call about a snapping turtle. And I was like, oh my god, we already have a snapping turtle. We've got a map turtle. Holy cow, turtles. Like this, like you know when turtle lay day is. And there's like 2 days. There was a deer's day and then the second day. It's like snapping turtles on this day, everyone else on this day. But you know that it's like snapping turtle laying time because the phone is just ringing off the hooks with turtles. So I have this map turtle. Actually, no, it wasn't even 30 minutes. I think I was literally still cleaning her off and getting the bleeding to stop when I hear my coworker saying, oh, let me pass you over to our animal person. And I was like, oh my god, I'm literally like dealing with a bloody turtle that just came in. I answer the phone and it's this woman telling me that her elderly neighbor, who's like 90 years old, called her because their neighborhood snapper had been run over. So basically this snapper has come back since this woman was a small girl, like a young child. This snapping turtle, pretty sure it's the same one, has come back to the same spot every year to lay eggs. And that morning the older neighbor, the 90-year-old, and her were watching her lay eggs. So we knew it had laid eggs. Perfect. So it was at that moment, that was later that afternoon, he had called her. He was out there with the snapping turtle and it had been hit. So someone had hit her as she was making her way back to where she came from. So she asked if there's anything we could do. And I told her, you know, if you feel comfortable, because I asked her where she was located, thinking that like maybe I could go and get it because it's a snapping turtle. Most people don't feel comfortable picking up a snapping turtle, especially an adult, and transporting it. And she was like, oh, well, we could bring it to you. And I was like, hey, if you feel comfortable picking up that snapping turtle and bringing it here, I will totally take it and take a look at it. This was probably the hardest intake I've had to date. It was awful. So I'm outside cleaning our outdoor turtle pond because in the midst of all of this, I was draining the pond, cleaning it, and refilling it. So I'm in the process of doing that when my coworker yells out, hey, the snapping turtle people are here. I walk in as he's opening the door for them. She brought the elderly 90-year-old neighbor. He's in a wheelchair and he has this snapping turtle in a pizza box on his lap. And she is pushing him in. And it was the most heartbreaking scene because that snapping turtle, I mean, its neck was out, its head was laying down. So you knew if it was alive, it wasn't in good shape. And it was just heartbreaking because here's this little old man, 90 years old, with this snapping turtle in his lap. And they're coming and asking me to help it. And so, most heartbreaking scene ever. So I look at it. They're like, oh yeah, you know, it's got like a split in its jaw, but you know, she was still moving around. So I look at its head and sure enough, the bottom jaw is just completely split in half. And that turtle looks like it is dead. It looks like it's not with us anymore. And the lady was like, yeah, but you know, when I like pushed it, like it moved, its leg twitched, so you watch. And she poked it and it didn't move. And she's like, but it did. When I poked it at home, it moved. And I was like, well, tell you what, let me put her in the bin in the office and give her time to, you know, kind of recover from the trauma, and then I'll reevaluate her. I knew that turtle wasn't gonna make it, but I was like, you know, let me just put her somewhere quiet where she can relax. And I picked up the turtle and the head just flopped. Like that, the whole body was just limp. You knew it was dead. Of course, I didn't want this little old man to like realize that it was just limp in my hands. So I took it and I like ran it to the office, put it in the bin, and went back out and was talking to them. and he was distracted, I think, talking to my coworker, and I was talking to the neighbor, and she's like, you know, what do you think? And so she was filling out paperwork, and she's like, oh, it's the contact information so you can contact us when you release her. And so I was honest. I was like, you know, I'm gonna be honest with you, that turtle's not gonna be released. That turtle's not gonna be released. There's no, that turtle's so far gone. I was like, that I didn't want to tell him like, you brought me a dead turtle. I didn't want to just be like, she was dead in your lap. So I just told him, you know, that turtle's not going to be able to be released. That turtle's unsavable, pretty much. That turtle's suffered some serious damage. And she understood. And, you know, what we talked about, distraction, you know, happy ending. I told the older gentleman and her that, you know, if you go home, you can protect her nest, because that increases the chances of her eggs hatching and the baby surviving, and then you'll have lots of little versions of her to live on. So they said that sounds like a great idea. They were gonna go, she told the neighbor, she said, you know, let's go home, we'll figure out how we can protect her nest so that her babies can hatch. And you know, they went on their way. But oh my god, it was the most heartbreaking moment of my life. I think the worst experience as far as rehab goes. So now I've got Ādira the snapping turtle, I've got MJ the map turtle who's bleeding profusely, I've got a dead snapping turtle, and my boss texts me that on her way to her appointment she picked up a painted turtle off the side of the road who she was also sure was dead, but there was a large crowd, and it was easier to take the turtle than to try to explain to everyone that that turtle was dead. So she had a dead turtle in her car. It was a day. It was a day. And then my boss, it's not done yet. It's not done yet. You would think it's done. It's not done yet. My boss ends up in the waiting room for her appointment for like ever, to the point where like she thinks they've forgotten about her. So there's no way she's making it back to the nature center before we close. So she was like, you know, if you want to leave and come back and meet me, you know, or if whatever. So I was planning on closing the building, leaving to grab dinner, and coming back. So before I leave, I check on MJ. She's like bled through all the gauze. So I'm like, okay, let me change the gauze one more time before I leave. So I'm changing the gauze again. The phone rings. Again, I'm handling a bloody turtle, so I'm ignoring the phone at that point. We're closed. I'm ignoring the phone. They leave a message. So after I finish with MJ, I'm like, well, let me listen to the message, because what if it's another turtle? Because with our luck today, it's going to be another turtle. Nope, it's a young kid and their grandfather, I think it was, out walking the trails at our nature center and calling about a baby black squirrel. So they didn't specify where and what trail. They said it was the opening of the trail, so at least that I knew it wasn't like way out on a trail. So I grab our bike gloves and I go walk in the trails, or walk in the start of all the trails. I don't see anything. So I go back to the building, I listen to the voicemail again to see if I get a hint. And they kind of alluded to, it was like a trail out that way at the end of the building. So I was like, okay, let me walk back over there. So I'm walking back over, and they happen to be walking out of the trail, thank God, because I would have never seen that baby squirrel. So the kid comes running out, and they're like, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. And I was like, did you call that a squirrel? I'm out here looking for her. Where's the squirrel? So they point off to the side in the tall grass. There's this little baby black squirrel. I would have never seen it. In fact, I had already walked by it on my first pass through. So thank God they were there and could point me to the squirrel. Sure enough, little baby black squirrel. It's got flies all over it. It's got fleas. But I pick it up, look it over. It's pretty cute. Lets me handle it. Definitely it has an issue with its back leg. Don't know exactly what, but there's definitely something wrong there. So not doing great. Thankfully, at that moment in time, my boss pulled into the parking lot. Because, you know, now I've got a baby squirrel in my hands. The building's locked, so I can't like pull out my keys and unlock the building. So she gets out of her car and I'm walking up with the bike gloves on and my hands like this. And she was like, what do you have? I'm like, baby squirrel. A second, baby squirrel. 2 baby squirrels now on my paperwork. 2 baby squirrels. I don't do squirrels. I do reptiles and amphibians. Now I have 2 squirrels. So one of our board members, or former board members, is a rehabber also, and he does do squirrels. So, and he's local. So we get the black squirrel in a critter keeper with like little towels and everything so we can take care of the turtle, and then I can drive the squirrel over to him. So we're trying to piece together MJ, figuring out how the heck we are going to fix her up. Now my boss had already been on the phone because she was like an hour and a half away. So she was on the phone with another rehabber on our way back who's dealt with a lot of severe turtle issues to try to get different ideas on our game plan. Now she's lost a lot of blood at this point, but she's still very alert and active. So good signs, but lost a lot of blood. And that bridge of her shell is like shoved up in there. So we start easy, we patch up the top cracks, and then we do what we can with the bridge, but it's not budging. We don't want to mess with it too much, so we leave it. We follow the advice of the other rehabber, and that's kind of what we've been doing thus far. Now, she had continued to be bleeding. Every time we changed her bandages, there was more blood. And, you know, we're guessing she had laid eggs because they found her in the middle of the day. Like, this was maybe like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So, assuming she had laid her eggs, but, you know, you don't know. Because her break was so bad and we didn't know if anything interior was damaged because she wouldn't stop bleeding. So it's like, are we leaving her to bleed out and die? Or is everything inside safe and okay to the point where she could maybe recover even with this crazy damage to her shell? So we bring them to a new vet because our usual vet isn't taking new patients. It's really hard to get in to see her. We think she might be on her way out to retiring. So we have a new vet. And apparently he's awesome. I haven't gotten to meet him yet. My boss has brought the turtles, but I haven't gotten to meet him yet. But apparently he's amazing. It's him and another guy that actually see exotics. So now I have someone else that I can use that's not too far away. So my boss schedules an appointment for them, brings them in, and oh, back to the squirrel. I should finish that day up. So I bring the squirrel to the other rehabber. He points out that, you know, the squirrel is very skinny, thinks it has either a sprained or like dislocated leg. Like the leg is just, there's something wrong with the leg. So I don't know any updates with the black squirrel. I know after like a day or two he told my boss he didn't think the squirrel was gonna make it, but I haven't heard anything since. So I don't know, I keep meaning to check in with him and I keep forgetting. So we'll have to see how that squirrel's doing. Back to the vet visit. So my boss brings 𝘎𝙪 and MJ to the vets. 𝘎𝙪 has 20 plus eggs inside of her, sure enough. So I've shown this picture before online, but now you guys can see it here. Little ping pong balls all inside of her. So she's got a bunch of eggs. So yes, her mouth is working, her injuries are healing up. I don't remember if we had her eating at that point or not, possibly. But now she has eggs that we need her to lay. So great, fantastic. MJ had no eggs, so thank God. One less problem. And everything looked good on her with the exception of the shell break. So all of the professionals, you know, the vet, the other rehabber who does lots of serious turtle rehab, they're all pushing for MJ. You know, they've said that they've seen worse recover and get released. So we're gonna have MJ for a while. It's gonna be over winter. But there is hope. And, you know, she's been bleeding less. It's healing up nicely, so we just need her to eat. So fast forward, we have our part-timers taking 𝘎𝙪 outside all the time to see if we can get her to dig and lay eggs. We definitely think there's some neurologic damage because she walked kind of funky. And, you know, the rehabber we talked to said, you know, it's possible it's going to take her body a little bit of time to realize it has eggs that need to be laid. So there was one day she started to dig. She did a pretty good hole, but didn't lay eggs. But we were a step in the right direction because up to that point she'd only been digging with her front legs and like trying to bury her head. That day she dug with her back legs and it was a deep hole. So we were feeling pretty good, and then she walked away. So the next day I told them, I'm like, everyone takes 30-minute rotations. You sit outside with her. She's laying these eggs. That first rotation, my sister was outside with her and she laid her eggs. Finally. So it was only a couple days later. We got her loaded up on food, got her set to go, and she was released. So there's another happy one. 𝘎𝙪 was released, successful rehab. Now, backtrack a little bit because, you know, I was so focused on turtles and squirrels, I forgot one. I had my first rehab snake, and that wasn't really anything crazy. So a snake was brought in, stuck to a glue trap. Now this was about the turtle laying time. Like, we had We had Adira, we had MJ. It was maybe the next day. I had left work early because I was owed time. This always happens when I leave work early. So I left work early. I get my Taco Bell. I sit down on my bed. I turn on the TV. I'm about to enjoy my freaking tacos. And doesn't one of our other full-timers call me. And I missed the call. And then my boss called me and texted me. Or she didn't call me, but she texted me, so I saw that. And there was a snake stuck to a glue trap. Just a garter snake, but stuck to a glue trap. So she was like, you know, if you want to go in, then you can put it on your license. Otherwise, you know, I'll put it on mine. And I was like, heck no, I want the snake on my license. So I go in. It was like barely stuck to the glue trap. So they'd already gotten it unstuck by the time I got there. I live like 10 minutes from work. 5 minutes, except the bridge next to my house to get there is being worked on right now. So I have to take a detour. So it's like 10 minutes. So I get there. Snake's off the glue trap. It's doing fine. It's in a critter keeper moving around. So I was like, all right, we'll just let it chill overnight. I'll look it over again in the morning. You know, make sure it's hydrated. I looked her over the next morning. She was totally fine, good to go. Released her. So yay, another release. And then just for fun, I guess we can count this one, would be Trivago. Now I did do a video on Trivago. Didn't announce he had a name yet because I was still looking for a name at the time. We decided on Trivago. So Trivago was, or is, my little house gecko that hitched a ride in someone's Chex Mix bag from Florida, went through airport security, and made his way back up here to New York. So, being the local reptile rehabilitator and reptile keeper, yeah, that kind of fell on me. We don't have like local reptile rescues. We don't have local pet stores. Like, I suggested to my friend that texted me about this, I was like, oh yeah, you know, because I didn't know the girl was here. I was like, you know, call local reptile rescue, a pet store or something. And she was like, girl, she's up there. That's gonna be you. And I was like, dang it. Small town problem. So we have Trivago. Trivago is very cute. My brother wants him, but also Billy, my boyfriend, really likes him. And it's the first pet that he's been okay with. He wants him for his game room. So you know what? Trivago is now going to be Billy's gaming lizard, I guess. His gaming gecko, if you will. So yes, Trivago will officially be staying. He's more so gonna be Billy's gecko, I guess, once we move. So make sure to follow on TikTok and Instagram for Keller's journey so that you can see when Keller gets released. And yeah, so that is my crazy rehab experience thus far this year. It has been absolutely insane. Next year should be really cool because we'll be in our new house where I actually have a designated rehab area outside. It's covered and I want to get it fenced in just to keep any animals out. But that way, you know, the animals will have natural UVB. You know, it's a very warm time of year for these animals to come in. So I'm not worried about being cold or anything. But also it's covered and there's outlets so I can hook up heat lamps if need be. But that way they're at least getting natural UVB, they're still outside, they're away from my animals so there's no cross exposure. But I do have a designated rehab area at the new house. So next year should be pretty exciting. Alright, and with all of that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Because like I said, I haven't really talked about rehab much on here. It's my first year being licensed and doing it. You know, I've helped in the past, but this is my first year actually being the license holder, and actually having a lot more say and a little more charge on some of these animals. So it's been quite an experience, all good and some bad, but you know, that's just what goes with the territory. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you for the next video. Bye bye.